Simon, can I just ask you about your party rules? Because I don't want. I'm asking you a question here. Has it changed in the last month in terms of the non-whites being members of the BNP?
No, the agreement that we had at the hearing on the 15th in London County Court was that we'd freeze our membership for 3 months whilst we put a proposed constitutional change to our members in view of the New Equalities Act coming in, which will outlaw all parties who seem to want to organise on ethnic basis.
So were you forced for this change, I suppose, with the law change?
Yeah, this hearing itself didn't force us, but the concept of the law changing Harriet Harman's Equality Bill coming in would make us illegal. So we're going to have to react in one way or another. As it is, a lot of people are looking at this and thinking, "Wow, this is the Labour Party adjusting the statute books to keep itself in power." Other people are thinking, well, it's the abandonment of the right of certain people to have their own identity. If this was being projected at Australian Aboriginals, for instance, the very same people putting in this law would be up in arms.
On your own party rules now, Simon, are non-whites allowed into the BNP? Have any joined, or is this still in this transition still ongoing?
Do you know, we don't have that many people who want to join us from ethnic minority backgrounds. We've got a lot of ethnic minority supporters. We've got a lot of Sikhs and Hindus, Chinese people who do support us. They like Britain the way it is, thank you very much, and realise that if we keep on flooding the place with immigrants, then it's going to spoil it for everybody. But they accept our right to our own identity, because that's the important thing here. And whilst I do accept that you've got probably 60% of people will think, here he is, the BNP, they're terrible and wicked and bad. There's other people thinking, well, hang on, the guy's got a bit of a point here, because what about our identity? And I think it's true in Ireland as well. A lot of people will be thinking, well, what about the rights of Irish people? We talk about the rights of immigrants all the time, but what about us, people will be saying? Who is it that's going to stand up for us? And why should it be that if people do stand up and campaign politically, why should they be continually vilified and almost criminalised for merely pointing out the obvious?
Okay, Simon, stay with me, because I want to turn to Roy Greenslade, who's a media analyst and former editor of The Mirror. Roy, good morning to you too. Just 8 minutes left in the morning. But anyway, Roy, was this an early Christmas present for the BNP?
I can't really decide. I mean, I'm not certain about the poll being necessarily correct or how the question was put.
And also there's a lot of publicity, isn't it? That poll. Yeah.
If you look at the reaction the next day in newspapers, it was wholly negative for Nick Griffin, but then that's a kind of self-fulfilling prophecy, because all of those newspapers would be committed to saying that anyway. He certainly got a pasting, but it was an elephant trap. I mean, he walked straight into it, and they just turned the programme around to be totally about the BNP. So the audience, I was surprised that there wasn't a single person in the audience who offered absolutely no support for the BNP. That surprised me a great deal. I'm not saying it was handpicked, it probably wasn't, but he came off badly, but then he was bound to come off badly.
In terms of Nick Griffin, I mean, this would be this has been a huge goal of his. This is legitimisation. The BBC's defence is that the support that the party got, perfectly valid support in the European elections, and it felt that an occasional slot on Question Time is justified. But the fallout now and the poll, as you say, 20% is probably a bit inflated, but a lot more people in Britain know who Nick Griffin is.
They do, and maybe, and you can't easily read what they thought about him. They might have thought he was shifty, that he refused to answer questions directly, for instance, about the Holocaust. I think the BBC were over a barrel here. I think they had to do it, and also, in a democracy, we do believe in free speech. If we'd have denied forever the possibility of the BNP being heard, then we are actually falling into the hands of fascism ourselves. If we believe in free speech, then we have to be offended sometimes by free speech, and people have a right to be offensive in free speech as long as they don't break the law. And as far as I can see, he didn't break the law. Can I just mention one thing about the law, by the way?
Of course.
I don't think there is any legislation in Britain which means you could be prosecuted for denying the Holocaust. So I think the refusal to answer that question by Griffin and by your interviewee just now is wrong-headed, and there's been no extradition of anyone from this country over Holocaust denial. The only person prosecuted for it was David Irving, who actually said it in Germany, where it is obviously against the law. So, I think you should get back to your interviewee and say to him, no prosecution will happen. Does he believe 6 million Jewish people perished at the hands of the Nazis in the war?
Well, let's turn back to Simon. Simon, I wanted to give you the last word, and I suppose we'll put Roy's question to you.
Okay, 2 answers. You may be right about this country, but of course Nick travels through France and Germany quite a lot now, going into Strasbourg, and you only have to look, if anybody wants to Google Bruno Gollnisch, the French MEP, who was...
but Simon, regardless of where you travel, if you believe in it, say it.
Well, I don't want to go to jail, my friend. I could do without that.
So you are denying the Holocaust?
No, I'm not. You mentioned the 6 million. Yes, I do believe that. But do you believe, for instance, that the communists, who Jack Straw and many members of the Labour Party, actually members of the Communist Party, killed millions of people in the last century?
I absolutely know that Stalin was responsible for many, many millions of deaths. I'm not denying that. Are you saying that that 6 million Jewish people died at the hands of the Nazis? Are you saying
yes, I am.
You do agree?
Yes, I do believe that. And but what I don't understand is how you, perhaps your paper, can defend the Labour Party, many of whom are former and paid-up members of the Communist Party, many of these people who are responsible for an ideology that killed hundreds of millions of people in the last century. I think that's rather hypocritical.
Well, most people who were former members of the Communist Party or belong to a Communist Party who now regret it are very open about saying that they do regret what they did and that they apologise for it. So I don't see that's a real problem.
Well, I've not heard. I don't see that published in the newspapers or on the television. Jack Straw and Mr. Mandelson and all these other former communists. I wish they would come out and say.
I don't know about Jack Straw, but I do not believe that at any stage Peter Mandelson was a communist. I find that very extraordinary.